Today. All right. Interesting. All right. So first thing I wanted to just have a look at today, um, for those that were in the Origin weekly summary and training yesterday, I sort of thought we were going to go a little bit lower before we swept to the upside. Um, it was a pretty decent move to the upside, but there's a couple of things that are still, I guess, concerning me that it might be a bit of a fake out. We might be unlikely to go to new all-time highs. And again, there's stats that say we might, there's stats that say we don't. I just want to introduce something else into the mix. Basically, what I'm showing here is the net flow of Bitcoin from miners. You can see here that when the miners are selling, especially in this low liquidity environment, Bitcoin mining isn't super profitable at this level because of the halving and stuff like that. So at the moment, whenever these guys are selling in big volumes, it's keeping the price flat to down, basically. When they're holding onto it, it can help increase the price. So I guess yesterday was a decent run up, but there was a net outflow, and essentially what that's suggesting is that the miners are selling into the pump, and that's going to probably affect Bitcoin's ability to break out to the upside. Little bit of a metric you don't necessarily see with other assets that might be traded. One thing I've noticed too when I jumped into this platform, Crypto Quant, is CME actually has more open interest. And CME is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, mutual exchange. Anyway, it's what the futures trading is on in the US for Bitcoin. There's actually more open interest on the CME than there is on Binance. And that was interesting that, it would seem that traditional finance made its mark really end of last year and has sort of driven that price quite a bit higher, helped drive that price higher. Anyway, that's just one thing that I'm keeping an eye on. Again, with the BTC USD longs, not a huge amount of change. So people are still accumulating a bit at these levels. Yeah, there seems to be some interest still in pushing Bitcoin higher. It's nothing to really write home about. Like, it's not, bull run type levels, but it's improving. Okay. When they start selling into a move, that's when it's probably going to be a decent move. But yeah, not a lot of volume there at the moment. All right, come back into this chart here. S&P was flat last night, pretty well dead flat. There is some increasing volume on Bitcoin, still nothing massive. And it's interesting that in 20 minutes, the daily is going to close below the top of the Gaussian channel again. Yeah, that's a pretty ugly looking daily candle too, just quietly. in terms of it looks like all the buyers might be exhausted. In which case, we're still kind of holding this downward pattern here. Yeah. Let's just say it's not super healthy, but if we did look at it the way we were looking at it last week, as potentially a rising wedge, it could be a breakout of that too. I'm not a huge fan of wedge patterns. They quite often break and then come back in, and you end up ranging in more of a horizontal kind of range. So the range might be more like this. Which I should use a different tool, but you know, the range may end up being a little bit different to that. So anyway, I think the more important thing is here, it's not huge, like there is an increase in volume, but we're struggling to get and stay above that top band of the Gaussian channel. I think once we can do that, that's a much more bullish sign. Like typically you want to see a breakout, a retest, and then go again. We've come back inside it. Typically once you break back inside, you do at least come back to the middle band, if not further. So yeah, hopefully it's not more like this. Anyway, and again, we've interestingly, the bottom EMA for the pi cycle indicator is now pretty much in line with the mid band of the Gaussian channel as well. So that could be a pretty strong support level. Well, it should be a pretty strong support level. So keep an eye on that one. Probably a pretty good buying opportunity, I would say. Alright, let's come into here. So on the daily, CCI indicator that I pay most attention to has ticked up. Yeah, not hugely excited by that. It's not in a particularly interesting level. That is an interesting level on the 4 hour using the CC indicators. It's bounced off that. I think that's a super trend, maybe. I can't remember which one that is he's using. But yeah, that's an interesting level there. If we look more at shorter time frames, so the 15-minute, there's a pretty decent grind up and more volume than what we have seen, obviously, for a while now. Looks like it's resetting. Bollinger Bands are decreasing. I'd be expecting it to actually come back into at least the 200 EMA on the 15-minute. We may get a bit of a bounce there. Quite often this CCI indicator will come just below 0 and then bounce up. In which case that bot will probably take another trade. It'll take a trade to the long side. Not super excited by that, but it is what it is. Because the long-term time frame has actually flicked bullish with that little move yesterday. So yeah, at the moment probably a bit more downside. Recovery of this little wick here would coincide with that 200 EMA, but Bollinger Bands are decreasing, so we'll probably go into a bit of sideways chop for a bit. Unless Asia gets excited again. This move was actually led by the Asian markets yesterday. They really came out with a vengeance, so it'll be interesting to see what they do today. Yeah, probably in not very long, probably about an hour. We'll see what they're what they're doing today. I'll have a quick look at Nasdaq and S&P. Were pretty flat last night, gapped up and then came down and basically back up to where they started. It's not a huge moving day on that one. Looks like they might actually come back down in after hours trade, potentially into this level here. So 52.89. You got the 800 EMA there. Maybe into the 200 EMA if you're lucky. Nothing to really write home about. There wasn't a lot of movement there. RSP, I'll just go to the daily on that. RSP is pretty flat as well. It has formed a higher low here, bouncing off the middle of that Bollinger Band. It's still not looking strong though. We need to see volume come back into the market. So once summer holidays are over for the traders, we might start to actually get some proper price action. Yeah, that wick on Friday was nasty. Yeah, interesting. Pretty flat. Market's a bit hesitant at the moment, it would seem. XLY, XLP, so it's still trending down. So that's basically saying that any bounce in the market's kind of not supported by the overall economy. Dixie's down, so it looks like Dixie may actually come into potentially this 102 level. That would probably be a pretty good level for it. Which means Bitcoin's probably going to trend higher, to be honest. It typically will trade counter to the Dixie, at least to some degree. VIX spiked a little bit, nothing huge. Don't worry about those trade markers on there, it's not calibrated. TLT's jumped a little. High yield bonds, what did they do? Yeah, pretty flat. Not hugely excited by that either. Really need to break out of this trend, this sort of range that we've been in for ages. Skew had a little bit of a crush there. Sorry, I need to get rid of these things. Yeah, Skew's been crushed, so that would suggest potentially some more downside on the S&P 500. Yeah, that's probably the best indicator that I've got that market looks like there might be more downside in it. Copper looks like it's bounced close to this 50 EMA. So yeah, it might be a bit of a dead cat bounce. I'd expect it if it gets that close to 50 EMA, we've got a bit of supply here, it should come back down to that level. The uranium, gold had a decent bounce. That's looking reasonably bullish. Gold's still attracting a fair bit of volume at the moment too. So that's reasonably healthy for gold, I would say. It stopped at the 20 EMA on the daily, but so the reaction today will be interesting on that one. If we do get follow through and it clears this little high here, so if we clear 2362-ish change, 2364, if we clear that, I would expect it to come back up at least into the 2400 mark, if not back up 2420. Aussie dollar's doing pretty well. If we get a breakout on the Aussie dollar, that would sort of confirm Dixie's probably going further down. Aussie dollar may actually come back up and retest this 800. That's been a resistance level in the past. Pretty good one. Struggles to clear it quite a lot. As you can see there, that's a very strong one there, the 200 and the 800 on the daily. The 800's a pretty good level to be watching on the Aussie dollar. So yeah, I would expect that to come up. We'll just check out the money supply. So the M2 money supply has ticked up again. Just means there's stuff going on in the background that the Fed's supporting, basically, I would think, the overall economy. Well, oil dropped too last night. Where was that? Hang on, quick look at this. So this is percentage stocks above the 50-day average. Isn't hugely healthy. It's kind of in no man's land, but not particularly healthy. So that might come down a bit, which would, like, if this comes down, the S&P 500 comes down, it would sort of all align with a bit more of a correction before we see more upside. Typically, once you're below that 30% level, that's a pretty good buying opportunity on the stock market. Where did I put oil? What's the fucking ticker for it? Let's do that one. Yeah, oil. Tanked to the downside today. So that 70 level is going to be pretty critical, I think. We'll probably hit into that. If we get a bounce off there, then yeah, it should be a decent bounce. Just quickly check IWM. So IWM, yeah, not looking super strong either. Even it coming back down into this 200 EMA would be a pretty good buy level, I would think. At least into the end of the year. But it might be that we just, with IWM, it might come down and just range. You might hit that again by the end of the year, whether we break out or not is another question entirely. Oh, I got the volume chart there. Jesus. What are you doing, TradingView? Where's my... Sorry, there it is. Okay. So this is sort of global Fed liquidity levels. It looks like it's still pretty flat. So any sort of pump isn't being supported at the moment through global liquidity means. So yeah, everything at the moment is still pointing towards downside in the general stock market. Not a huge crash at the moment or anything, but just healthy correction into some key levels, which if you look at Bitcoin, we did get a decent bounce off this most traded sort of area, but no real breakout of value area high or anything like that. So yeah, I'm looking at it as probably potentially some more downside, but it's going to be a grind down. There's still there is accumulation distribution. Let's have a look at have a look at this. So basically what this is telling you is, I'm just trying to see if there's a better one. This will do for now. So Bitcoin's still being accumulated. There's no huge drop off. There's no massive distribution through this level. It's still essentially being accumulated overall. So yeah, I don't think we're going to break below these levels or anything like that. I think this, if we do, again, I think I've said this before, if we break below these sort of levels, it'll be a quick drop and then a bounce back up. Do we test these again potentially before the bull run? Yeah. 200 EMA on the daily would be a pretty good level to hit. But at the moment, the stronger levels that I'm going to be looking at are the pi cycle slow moving average. Sorry, that's the fast moving average. Anyway, the bottom moving average and the Gaussian channels, I think they're going to be a very key level. If we break below that, then I can start talking about the 200 EMA. All right, that's about it for now. Yeah, still pretty boring on the market. There have been some decent moves in the shit coins and stuff, though. Well, not shit coins, but yeah, not Bitcoin, basically. Although Ethereum's been flat as a tack too, pretty much. I don't think it even went on the run yesterday, did it? Yeah, it's been, after that pump on the ETF news, it's just sideways, basically. So, look, you'd kind of expect it to keep going sideways until some of these moving averages come up, or it will actually head down as well. And that's probably your biggest indicator that you may get some more downside on Bitcoin, or at least it'll stay flat for a little bit, because I'd expect Bitcoin dominance. Yeah, Bitcoin dominance seems like it's probably going to head up a little bit, which would coincide with probably Ethereum and some of the altcoins dropping. So Bitcoin could pretty much stay the same or move down a little bit. You'll see a decent move down on Ethereum and you'll still get this chart come up. Like I would expect Bitcoin dominance to sort of come back up in here over the next little while. Yeah, the only thing I'm wary of with this and expecting more downside is, again, low liquidity. We don't have a lot of volume, but Eric Crown has some longer term indicators that have fired off, suggesting there's a potentially more upside, potentially into that 70 to 80k mark. So that's still something I'm kind of wary of, I guess. I would suggest while other things are accumulating, or other people are accumulating, it's probably not a bad thing to be accumulating for the long term at the same time and just try and buy up any dips that do happen. That's what I'm looking at anyway, not financial advice, just this is how I'm looking at the market. All right, that's it for today. Catches.